Welcome to another installment of Garden Party, everybody. It's our virtual series from the Southern California News Group that we created to give you tips, tricks, and insights for getting the most joy and productivity out of your gardening experience. And also, hopefully, help you find a community of like-minded green thumbs, or in my case, a wannabe green thumb. I'm Sam Dunn. I'm the senior editor for premium content here at the Southern California News Group. And I want to say thank you to our Reader Reward subscribers and to all of you for supporting our virtual programs and our newspapers. By the way, if you are a Reader Reward subscriber attending today, you're automatically entered to win a $100 gift certificate from Home Depot, which should help you with your gardening ambitions for sure. And folks, if you are not a subscriber, real talk, why are you not a subscriber? Please support local journalism and go to scng.com/subscribe to find your local paper. And please join us as a regular reader. So before we get started, I have to remind you of a few things. If you have questions, and we hope you do, use the Q&A feature on the Zoom toolbar on your screen. Questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. But certainly, if you have comments that you want to make during the talk, use the chat feature found on your Zoom toolbar as well. Keep in mind, you'll have slides to refer to as you go, so you're not going to miss a thing. And also, this session will be videotaped, and a link is going to be sent to you, so you can share it or just revisit some of your favorite moments. It's also going to be posted at scng.com/virtual events, and that's where you can find all of our past virtual shows, as well as see what's coming up. We're also, by the way, on YouTube. Now, here's one of our longtime gardening columnists and the person you came here to see, Laura Simpson. She's got today's presentation. Hey, Laura.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. I'll let you get
Great.
started. I'll see you at the end.
Yeah. So let me do share screen here. And you can see my pretty slideshow. Okay. So is that coming in okay?
Looks good, Laura.
Okay, great. So so today we're talking about winter gardening and seed saving. And if you watch my my screen, my cat is I'm set up on my cat's scratching post little tower thing, and he decided to set up shop on the platform right above me. So if this black thing comes down in front of my face, that's his tail. Just so you know what the heck that is. So anyway, we'll get started here. And let's see. Okay, and then in case you didn't know, I've been a master gardener since 2002. I have a platinum badge, which means I have over 2,500 hours of volunteer time put in with the Master Gardener program. I've been a gardening columnist of the Southern California News Group for like 5 years or something now. I've been a Master Food Preserver since 2015, and that's through the University of California. It's the San Bernardino County Master Food Preserver program. In my former life, I was a research scientist specializing in molecular biology, infectious disease, all that stuff. I live near Temecula with my husband Jim, and he's also a master gardener. So, yeah, we have the crazy plant people yard. So what we're going to talk about today is what can you grow in the winter, especially here. If you pick up a gardening book from anywhere, just a random gardening book, a lot of them really don't talk about winter gardening because most of the country is under snow or it's too cold to garden. However, here we have the advantage that we can actually garden all year round, which is a good or bad thing, depending if you want to break from weeding and stuff. But it's nice to be able to grow certain things in the winter. When to start seeds. So you get seeds, you want to make sure that the seedlings are big enough to put out. So we've figured out like when the best time is to start that process. What to direct seed? Not every plant should be started in seed trays. A lot of them really do much better in direct seed into the ground. And then how to make it successful, because if you've ever tried to grow seeds, a lot of times you end up with problems like it damping off, or they get too leggy or whatever, they don't grow. So I'll talk about some of the things you can use, some techniques you can use to make that successful for you. And also how to save seeds. We notice that everything's getting more expensive, including vegetable and flower seeds. So there's a way to save your seeds, and that's kind of a fun thing too. So let's get started here. All right, so winter crops for Southern California would be like lettuce is a big one. It does very well. It doesn't do well in 100 degrees, but I mean when it's like 60 degrees, 70 degrees during the day, lettuce does great. Also cooking greens like kale, collards, all chard, anything that is a cooking green. Root vegetables like beets, uh, I was gonna say onions also, but root see radishes, anything that's a root can usually can be grown in the wintertime here. Fava beans and peas do very well. Usually those are a little bit later in the winter, like before it gets warm in the spring, but that those don't do well when it gets very hot. But if you get started early enough, meaning still in the wintertime, you can get a nice crop of fava beans and peas that way. So lettuce, there's so many different colors and shapes. You can get oak leaf lettuce, you can get red leaf lettuce. Some of it's like almost a burgundy color leaf. And one thing that's nice is that you probably noticed that a lot of times you can't get lettuce at certain times because they recall it. You go to Costco to go get a bag of lettuce and there's nothing there because it's all under recall. Because if the way they process it, when they pull it out of the field and they kind of do a preliminary washing, right? Because it has dirt on it, of course. But they wash it in these big vats, and sometimes if there's a contaminant in that big vat, that's where they're washing, thousands of heads of lettuce. If there's a contaminant in there, then all those lettuces are not going to be safe to eat especially because in general you don't cook lettuce, and so um, things like salmonella can be a real problem for lettuce, even if there's just a minor contamination. They don't want to take any chances, and so you'll find that there's a lot of recalls of lettuce and greens. So if you grow your own, you don't have to worry about that. Cooking greens are good for you, but um, well, we always cook ours with bacon, so I don't know how good it actually ultimately is, but it kind of negates the bacon, I'd like to say. So Swiss chard is a good one. We like Swiss chard if you pick it really young, like when the leaves are maybe less than 6 inches long, then it makes a really good salad green. You'll see it in lettuce mixes. It's really quite pretty with a dark green leaf, and then it has like the dark red veining to it. It's very decorative in of itself. Escarole is another one that does very well here. That's a nice cooking green. And those are expensive in the stores. I mean, I think it's like $4 or $5 a head sometimes for a head of escarole. And if you can grow it so easily here, might as well do that. Spinach, some people, my neighbor down the street has great spinach. He has great luck with spinach. We have not been able to grow spinach. So we trade off. We give him some stuff and he gives us spinach. So but spinach does really well in sandy soil. It has a tendency to grow kind of low and flat. And so and then also the leaves are kind of what they say, like not savoyed, but they're kind of bumpy, right? So if you're growing your own spinach, even if you're buying spinach, you notice you really do have to rinse it quite a bit to get all the grit off of it because it does grow very low to the ground. Swiss chard has a more upright growth, and so we actually prefer the Swiss chard for cooking greens over spinach. Plus, our Swiss chard just does better. Kale does very well. Kale does really much, much better once it is exposed to frost. And one of the things is kale is real subject to aphid damage. So once it gets hit with frost, the aphids get killed. They get dead, as my kids would say. And so the kale seems to increase its flavor. It has like a better flavor, less bitter once it's exposed to that cold air. So start growing kale. So then by the time we get a bit of a frost, the kale improves quite a lot. And then of course endive, which is another fancy green that's kind of expensive in the stores, but we can actually grow that here too. Um, that one, it requires some blanching and stuff, but it's kind of fun for people use it for scooping up dip and stuff. But that one's also kind of a high class green, as I would say. Root vegetables, so carrots, beets, turnips, celery root, all those things do very well in the winter here. They and of course, like a lot of these, the greens you can use, the beet greens and turnip greens are really quite tasty. Carrot greens, if you have like parakeets or birds, they really love the carrot tops. So that's always a nice use for that. I think there's also some recipes that use carrot tops, but I'm not familiar. I've heard that you can use them in some recipes. Onions and alliums. So of course, onions, garlic, and shallots. You can grow all of these things in your vegetable garden. Also, for garlic and shallots, you can actually buy, a head of garlic and then split it up into cloves and plant those cloves into the ground. But you want to make sure that you poke them down like maybe an inch or two below the surface of the soil, and you want to make sure that that pointy end is pointed upwards so it grows the right direction. So not just regular garlic like this, but also there's all sorts of fancy garlics that you can get at the farmer's market, like music. There's some garlic that's really, really quite hot. And some that's red. Red garlic. There's a whole world of gourmet garlic out there I did not know about until my husband gets sent a catalog, and we went nuts on garlic one year. So you don't have to grow just the regular stuff. You can grow the fancy stuff that you can get at Whole Foods, and have a whole bunch of it that you didn't have to pay that much for. Shallots, the same thing. I mean, shallots, usually when you buy them, there's a couple of like cloves or whatever in the shallots. So you can buy shallots from the grocery store and actually plant those into the ground, and they will root. You will have best results if you use stuff that's organic, because sometimes some stuff gets sprayed or treated with a chemical that prevents it from sprouting. We've noticed that with ginger. You want to use if you want to grow your own ginger, you have to get the organic ginger because it will not grow. The regular ginger will not grow because it's treated not to sprout. So fava beans and peas, these are really good. Just our kids used to go out into the garden and just like pick peas and eat them out of the pod. So I mean, we hardly had a chance to cook peas because they get devoured in the garden as snacks while we were working. Fresh peas are just really, really sweet. Once they've been picked, they start to lose their sweetness. So it's best to pick and then cook them right away. Fava beans do really, really well here. And these guys are kind of big plants. We've had them where they were like 4 feet up to 6 feet tall, and they produce quite a few pods on each plant. If you're familiar with fava beans, they've got the pods are really quite large, and you shell them, and then there's these large beans inside there. And what you have to do is blanch them, and then you peel off the outer shell, and then there's the little fava bean inside. If you don't do that, the shell that it comes with is very chewy. So I don't think it just tastes bad. It's really, really chewy and just kind of like detracts from the experience. But fava beans are really quite delicious. Bush beans also do very well. I like pole beans because you don't have to get down low to see if they're producing. It's really easy to see them. on the trellis. And some pole beans are, there's regular green potted pole beans, but also they have purple potted pole beans, which have purple flowers, very pretty. And one thing that's nice is it's easy to spot those beans when they're on the vine, so you can get out there and pick them without having to hunt too much for it. With the peas and beans, they really need to be continuously harvested to produce more. With fava beans, it's kind of a one and done thing. You wait until they're all done, and then you cut the plants down and take the beans. But peas, beans, and the both kind of beans, you would want to continuously harvest, because if you allow them to mature, then they stop producing beans, which is kind of a bummer. So let's see. All right. Seed starting. So you can use trays and cells. You'll see them at Lowe's and Home Depot, but the ones at Lowe's and Home Depot are kind of lame. You'll also see seed starting mix sold. There's a reason that you use a special planting mix for seed starting. We've had best luck with winter herbs like parsley and chervil. Those do really well starting from seed. Salad greens, onions like scallions. It's nice to have a patch of scallions in your yard because you can just go out there and cut what you need. Because when you buy them from the grocery store, they kind of get slimy pretty quickly. Also, cooking greens do well from seed starting. So all those things are worth starting from seed. So trays and cells. These they come in different sizes and different shapes. You can see this one here, the slide. There's round little cells and then larger square or rectangular shells. There's like a little mini 6-pack type setup there. So these are, if you get them from Lowe's and Home Depot, they're very, very flimsy. I mean, they're good for maybe one use. The plastic is very thin and it cracks very easily. And the trays they come with are also very fragile and kind of lightweight. So what we found is we've gone to the hydroponic stores, and the seed trays are A, much less expensive, and B, they're much better quality. So the trays last us for about 5 years or so, and as well as the cells. So I recommend going to a hydroponic store to get, if you're interested in starting things from seed, they have that there, and it's much better quality. The tray can hold the water, so it provides stability for the cells. And we recommend like 1 or 2 seeds per cell. You don't, when you buy seed starts from the store or the nursery, they look like they plant so many seeds in each cell, and that's because it looks better to have all these leaves, and it looks very lush and healthy. However, there's too many plants in that one little cell, and they're going to get crowded out. So when you go to plant them, you either have to snip away most of them or try to separate them, which can be difficult. You'll lose a lot that way. So doing it yourself, you're not having to sell these plants. But just do 1 or 2 seeds per cell. That way you're more likely to get something to come up in each cell. So we've had good luck with that. Also, seed starting mix. You want something that holds water but has a low nutrient content. It holds this is kind of ironic. It seems contradictory. It has to hold water but allow for drainage. But coir or peat moss combined with vermiculite, both those things, they really make a good seed starting mix. You want a low nutrient content because when those seeds are coming up, all the nutrients they're getting are in that cotyledon, that little like seed half, when it pops its head up and it has those 2 halves of the seed. Well, that has a lot of nutrients in it, enough for the seedling to get started. And so you want to keep the nutrient content of your seed starting mix low to start out with, because these seeds are, when they're just germinating, they're quite delicate. The leaves are, or the roots are real delicate, so they don't really handle a lot of fertilizer. They burn real easily. So we start with very little nutrient. One thing to do is to start with a seed starting mix, and then you can put like a layer of vermiculite over top, and the vermiculite will hold the water, help keep the seed starting mix from drying out, and it but it allows for a little bit of air circulation at the base of the plant, so you don't have that damping off problem, which I'll talk about in a little bit here. Okay, so winter herbs. Parsley and chervil really do well in the winter time. Chervil is a wonderful herb that you have a hard time finding that in the stores, at least as a fresh herb. It's a delicate, it's real pretty, it's kind of lacy looking, very delicate looking because it is delicate, but it has like a nice mild anise type flavor to it. We like it mixed in with like scrambled eggs or some cheese dishes and stuff. It's a very nice delicate herb. Tarragon is another one that really kind of does better in the winter. During the summer, it just goes dormant. Don't buy tarragon seeds because there's several different kinds of tarragon. The two main ones are Russian tarragon and French tarragon. So if you see seeds for tarragon, that's going to be for Russian tarragon, which doesn't have any flavor. It looks like tarragon, but it's not the culinary type. You want French tarragon. And French tarragon is a sterile, it doesn't produce flowers or seeds. It's reproduced directly from like divisions or cuttings. So don't buy tarragon seeds because that's not worth it. And then winter herbs can be started either in a seed tray or direct seeded, either way, depending. We like to try and do as many things in seed tray as possible, just because we like them to get big enough that they don't get devoured by all the slugs that we end up having. Salad greens, of course, many varieties of salad greens. There's head lettuce, like a romaine, bib, iceberg. Those you know, those are really mild flavor. The bib is very delicate. I've seen those used for like, sandwich wraps and stuff. Mesclun is also known as salad mix. Arugula, of course, very expensive if you buy it in the Whole Foods or whatever, but that stuff grows like gangbusters here. Corn salad, it's another, like, it grows in a low rosette. It has a mild, delicate flavor as well. And of course, chicory, radicchio. I paid like $4 or $5 a head for that at the grocery store, and it's really easy to grow here. And we've after a couple of lessons hard learned, we've learned that it's better to start salad greens, particularly mesclun, where you have a mix. It's much better to grow it in a seed tray and get it started and then plant it in the ground, because if you just direct sow it into the ground, a lot of times you end up with weeds coming up in your salad mix, and sometimes weeds don't taste very good. So it helps keep your salad patch free of weeds. Okay, so onions, alliums. Of course, there's all different kinds of onions. You can buy the sets at any garden center, any nursery has those onion sets. And these should be showing up in the stores about now. Usually in October, November is when you see a lot of this. So the red onions, white onions, or the yellow onions, you can buy those in sets, and then you can direct plant those. They just look like itty bitty onions, and you can just put them in the ground directly and space them out. Think about how big the onions normally will be, like 4 inches across. So you want to space them out so you don't have to thin them. Garlic also does very well. So with when you buy a these sets, and they're cute little round onions, I think you're gonna get a grown-up onion that's gonna be round just like that. A lot of times you have to wait quite a while for it to be round, but you can harvest them early. They're kind of torpedo shapes. They're kind of like long. They almost look like a fat um they look like a fat green onion. You can still use them, but they're a little bit harder to work with. When they're ready, what happens is that it bulbs up, and you'll kind of see it, they kind of heave up out of the ground. But for any of these um round onions, so when they're ready, they'll kind of tell you. The tops will kind of fall over. They'll dry out at the top, and the bulb itself will actually come out of the ground. So it's kind of easy to figure out when to harvest them. But like I said, you can harvest them early if you need something to chop up for soup or whatever. And then scallions, sometimes what people will do is they'll cut off the bottom little piece of root and then put that in the ground as well. And they'll come back up that way. So either way, there's all sorts of different exotic onions and garlics you can grow. And then cooking greens, of course. Cooking greens, when they come up, they're really small. They're just itty bitty, teeny weeny tiny. So we like to start those, of course, inside, just because it's really hard to tell when the seedling has got these little tiny. But there's cotyledons, which are like the first little leaf-like things that come up, and then you wait until they get their true leaves, and then you know what it is. So these guys are just like really, really small. So sometimes it's hard to tell if you plant this directly in the ground. A lot of times it's hard to tell whether it's a weed or not. So, and snails and slugs really like them. So we like to transplant them outside when they're maybe 2 or 3 inches tall. Sometimes we miss the boat and plant them when they're like 6 inches tall. But at that point, then they're less likely to get eaten by slugs or snails, and they have like enough leaves that they can grow quite quickly on their own. So when to start? So Christmas, New Year's Day, that's our target date. You want to allow for 6 to 8 weeks before transplanting them out. And keep in mind, our last frost date is March 15th. Um, so so keep that in mind. If you have anything that's uh, that's touchy about frost, and a lot of seeds will say plant after your last frost date. And our last frost date being March 15th. I've I don't think we've lived out here 30 years. I don't think I've seen it frost after. I've never seen frost after March 15th. Just for perspective, upstate New York, where I came from, we would have snow. We could have snow in mid-May. So we're lucky. We don't have a frost too late in the year. If you have a heat pad, or like a heat mat, they sell these in garden supply goods. You can actually speed up the germination. Some of these take a little while to germinate. And so applying that bottom heat helps speed up germination. One thing to keep in mind is if you do use a heat mat, you're going to have to check your seed trays quite often, because it does dry out the seed starting mix really quickly. So you may have to water it much more often with that bottom heat. It'll surprise you. Like all of a sudden everything's wilted and dead. You forgot to water this afternoon. So kind of put a reminder if you do use the bottom heat. And then grow lights. We like to have our grow lights on 8 to 12 hours per day. This is not our setup, but it is we have one that's very similar to that. And this rack, this wire shelving unit, you can get at Costco or Sam's Club. I think it was $100. And then we use LED lights, LED grow lights, which don't throw off a lot of heat and don't use a lot of energy, and they last quite a while. But they're really good because you've got that right on those seeds, and they need as much light as they can get because they need that light to grow, and you want them to grow. You don't want them to sit there and not do anything. So direct seeding, all root vegetables should be direct seeded. It kills me. I saw a 6-pack of radishes at a nursery. It was like $5 for a 6-pack of radishes. People buy them, I guess, but you want to direct seed into the ground for root vegetables, particularly things like carrots, because if you try to transplant them, I mean, a carrot's basically a taproot, right? So if you dump it out of the seed tray and try to put it in the ground, you're damaging that root. So you're going to get like really weird looking carrots, and they may not size up because that root is damaged. So you want to make sure you want nice long straight carrots. They're easier to work with. So and herbs with taproots would be like parsley, um, cilantro also has kind of a taproot. So those things you want to direct seed those. Also, dill, I believe, has a taproot and doesn't do well with transplanting. Anything with large seeds, then you can direct seed those as well, because with large seeds, there's like that seed is meaty. So when it germinates, it's got a lot of food in there for that seedling. They actually will size up. The seedlings will grow quite fast. You've seen that with beans and peas. That's why they like using them for kids' science projects, is because it's almost instant gratification. They grow and get big really quite quickly. So direct seeding works best with those as well. Okay, so successful seed starting. Let me start with nutrient-free starting mix. I talked about that. You want to make sure you consistently water. Make sure it's not soggy, but you don't want it to be. You don't want to let it dry out. You want it to be about as wet as like if you take a sponge and you squeeze it as hard as you can. And that's about how damp you want that seed starting mix. Intense light. They need intense light. They like bottom heat. It's not totally necessary, but it's, like I said, it helps speed things up. And you also make sure there's good air circulation. Like, don't overcrowd your seedlings. That's why you only want like two at the most in each cell, because you don't want them overcrowded, because that encourages fungus growth, which is the bane of every gardener trying to start seedlings. And this is what happens, damping off, caused by a soil fungus called Fusarium. And this is why you want to use a nutrient poor soil, just the peat moss or coir and vermiculite, because the nutrients in the soil feed the fungus, and then the fungus destroys the seedlings. You'll see how it looks pinched off on the base of that plant there. So also excess moisture. That's why, it's like the Goldilocks thing, not too much, not too little. You want it just right. One thing that helps with damping off is to top your seed tray with vermiculite, and that seems to help keep the seedlings like moist but not wet. And misting with water, when you have the vermiculite, you just use a spray bottle and mist it with the water just to keep the vermiculite slightly moist. And that helps with damping off quite a lot. And you may still lose some seedlings, but it's really a bummer when you do a whole bunch of trays and they all die from damping off. So you want to avoid that heartache. All right, another thing for seed saving, keeping in mind that you could save seeds from year to year, but remember that there's a decrease in viability with each year, especially parsnips. Parsnips, you're gonna, if you like to grow parsnips, just buy new seeds every year, because they do not keep. You get 0% viability after a year. So don't save your parsnip seeds. They don't age well. But they decrease in viability. So keep that in mind. So when you when you plant, if you have like, let's say you have some lettuce seeds and they're maybe 2 years old, and you want to plant a seed tray with lettuce seeds, instead of putting 1 or 2 seeds in each cell, put 3 or 4 seeds in each cell. And then you're more likely to get at least something to come up there. And then if all 4 come up, then you can just take some scissors and snip the extras. But it increases your chances of getting something in each cell, which is nice. When you're saving seeds, you want to we like to select for certain things. So, for instance, cilantro, which has a villainous tendency to just like bolt as soon as you blink, right? So, what I've done with our cilantro is I plant a patch of it and harvest it throughout the spring and wait as it bolts and sets seed. Well, as it bolts, then I remove each plant as it bolts. And then the last one to bolt, I leave that one in the ground and I let it set seed. So you'll see it'll have like a little umbel type flower, and at the end of each of those little mini flowers that makes up the umbel, that turns into a seed. So you can harvest those seeds and save them, and then each year doing that, you end up with a later bolting cilantro. So you can get cilantro longer in the season, and that's kind of what you want. This is how heirloom varieties are born as well. You also can select for disease resistance, or if you have a certain plant, let's say you have one kale that none of the aphids like, then you might want to let that guy set seeds and save the seeds from that. There might be something up with that plant that makes it resistant to pest damage or whatever. Keep in mind there's also cross-pollination occurs unless you're really, type A and you put these little like bags over each flower and hand pollinate, which the plant breeders do that. But for the most part, you're not going to be doing that. So be aware there's cross-pollination occurs. And so you may get a grab bag when you collect those seeds and plant them the next season. You might get something a little weird, and it might be something wonderful too. So that's always an adventure. Collecting them, you know, it's um, it's pretty easy to collect them once you know what to look for, and then labeling and storing them. There's a way to store them. So parsnips, yeah, parsnip viability less than 1 year. So plant according to viability. So you can find like 50% viability, 2 to 3 seeds per cell, 25%, then do 4 to 6 seeds per cell. Lettuce is probably about 50% viability after 1 or 2 years. And as the years go on, plant more seeds per cell or just buy new seeds. Either way. So another way to test for viability too is to do this paper towel method where you put them on a damp paper towel and then you look and see, and as they germinate, you see the little root comes out. Well, you want to pluck those out and put them in the soil because that root will actually burrow into the paper towel pretty quickly. But then it's alive. So that's one way of testing for viability there. For selection, yeah, late bolting, disease resistance. There's always that one plant that all the aphids or all the bugs seem to congregate on. So don't collect seeds from that one. Find the one that is most resistant. And then there's also soil funguses and things like that. So just like the best looking plant that produces the best, then just collect the seeds from that. And sometimes you don't know, you know, you know how it is this time of year, the late season, everything's kind of a jumble. So to label the desirable plants, basically what we'll do is we have like this bright pink string that you use for mason lines or whatever. That's bright pink so you can see it, and we'll tie it around the stem of the plant that we want to save seeds from. So do that before you lose track of who's who, because once everything sets seed, it's hard to tell. And you can create your own heirlooms that way too. Something that's well adapted to your particular environment. So squash, yeah, squash, cross-pollination, melons and corn, all of those guys experience quite a bit of cross-pollination. With squash, we've gotten some really wild-looking pumpkins, especially winter squashes. So that's kind of fun. You can get some really weird stuff with squash. It seems like there's a lot of cross-pollination that goes on there. And sometimes you can't tell whether something's a winter squash or a summer squash when you get a hybrid volunteer. It just kind of shows up. I asked my husband, "What the heck is that?" I don't know. So they cut it off the vine and try cooking it, and if it's woody, or because occasionally it will. If you have winter squashes and pumpkins and they cross pollinate, occasionally you'll get like a gourd. So keep that in mind too. Collecting seeds. So what you're going to see for the most part, flowers, you want to let them completely dry on the plant, but you don't want to wait too long after that point because then the seeds will drop off of the flowers and you'll lose them. Or fruit that's completely ripe, tomatoes, you can save the seeds from tomatoes as well. Peppers, eggplants, uh, stuff that's overripe, like squash, like zucchinis. Zucchini is terrible when it's overripe. That 4 foot long zucchini. Um, it gets woody, but also the seeds are hard, and so that indicates the seeds are probably good to save. So cucumbers as well, they end up getting like really hard shelled seeds, and there's you'll notice that cucumber seeds are light in color, so you kind of you have to learn what the overripe cucumber looks like, where you can cut it open and save the seeds. Because once you cut it open, I mean, if the seeds aren't ready, you just throw it in the compost pile because the seeds aren't gonna become more mature and once that fruit's cut open. Eggplant as well. Eggplants, we've had we've had really good luck with volunteer eggplants, but once the eggplant gets they'll get yellow, they get terribly bitter. And then if you cut them open, those little seeds are kind of hard. Well, those are good to save. So make sure that it has a hard shell. These guys, some of these are green, so they might not, but the ones that are brown and dark are going to be the ones that you want to save. And of course, when you collect them, you're going to have a mixed bag. They're not all going to be dark brown or whatever. They mature at different ages. So we save our seeds this way. You can get these at Michael's really inexpensively. They use it for scrapbooking for photos, but we use it for seed saving, and it's nice because you can label. There's a place where you can label it, and you can keep all your eggplant varieties in one, all your tomatillos, cucumbers, whatever. Those work really well for saving seeds, especially those in the commercial packets. They fit perfectly in there. We've also used for collecting our own seeds. We've used those little coin envelopes that you can get, like I think 500 of them at Staples. They come in a box. Those are nice. So you can label them with what it is and always put the year you harvested it and any other information you might need. But it's nice. Those are nice because you can just write directly on the envelope. Plastic Ziploc bags are good, but got to be careful because you don't want any moisture trapped in there. If you have any seeds that still have moisture, then they can get moldy. The specialized containers and vials you can buy off Amazon or gardening supply places, but those are kind of expensive. A lot of those are designed for like a deep freeze situation, so you don't really need that. If you're not saving your seeds in liquid nitrogen, don't spend the big bucks on those. So yeah, label it with a description and a date and keep it in a cool, dry place. Don't keep it in the garage that gets hot in the summertime. You want to keep it indoors someplace. Even like in your refrigerator if you have room is a good spot for it. But someplace where it's not gonna cook. Yeah. And that is it. I have more information. You can go to the UCA&R website, University of California Agriculture and Natural Resources. And that is a wonderful rabbit warren of information. All of it's updated continuously. Mother Earth News is good. They have like a lot of information on tricks for seed starting and stuff. Seed Savers is a nonprofit organization. They come up with this giant catalog about the size of a phone book, and it has people that save their seeds and they want that you can trade. And so that's always they're always a fun website there. Any local garden clubs you'll get it's really fun to hook up with the local garden clubs because you can get all sorts of free plant material. People are thinning their stuff out or saving seeds, and they have you know 5,000 kale seeds, and they don't need that many, so they're going to trade. Like they'll have plenty to trade with you, and then also plant and seed exchanges. I've seen a lot of groups on Facebook where people meet up and they trade seeds and stuff, and those are always fun. People are really nice, and you can get a lot of good information from these local groups. So I strongly recommend just getting involved with your local garden clubs and plant exchanges because, hey, plant people are really nice. What can I say? Plus, a lot of them are really good cooks too, so they usually have a potluck going on. So that's my 2 cents for today, I guess.
Well, thank you, Laura. As always, fantastic information. We have a few questions before we wrap up. We've got about 10 minutes left before our time
Yes.
is finished. So let's just get right to it. Cindy asks, do you start seeds indoors or outdoors? Any benefit to one over the other?
Oh, we do ours indoors just because we can keep a closer eye on it. Also, it's
Mhm.
warmer indoors, so and there's
Control
hopefully
the,
no snails or slugs or anything that's going to eat our
hopefully.
plants. Yeah, yeah,
Hopefully. Cindy
yeah.
Golden asked, does direct seed mean buying seeds instead of planting carrot tops?
Oh, direct seed would mean putting the seed straight in the ground instead of starting it in the seed tray.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, but you can start carrots like that's kind of a fun little project for kids is putting the carrot tops, putting them in the ground because they will
Yeah.
root. However, the carrot you get from it will be kind of funny looking. So it's a good project for kids, but you know,
Not so much for eating. Okay, fair enough.
yeah.
Ellen Smiley wants to know, do you make your own seed starting mix and what is your recipe?
Oh, okay. So seed starting mix. We will buy like you can buy the core bricks. Those are pretty convenient because it comes in like the it's like a size of a big brick, and you it comes like shrink wrapped. They sell those in the hydroponic store too.
Uh-huh.
But what we'll do is we'll put it in one of those big like Rubbermaid containers or the bins that you get at Costco or whatever, the big plastic bins. And then we pour hot water on it, and we keep pouring hot water on it, and it will eventually like fluff up. So you get this brick will give you like I had like 50 gallons worth of core, which is similar to peat moss. Or you can buy a bale of peat moss and use that as well. One thing is that both of those they're kind of I like to say scotch guarded, where they can suck up a lot of water before they're moist enough to start seeds in. So be prepared to have that be like kind of a lengthy hydration process. It might take a couple days to get enough water into that mix to get it to the right texture. And then he adds, probably about volume wise, maybe a third to a fourth, maybe one scoop of vermiculite to 3 scoops of peat moss or core and just mixed in. And then once the seeds start, you do want to give it like really dilute fertilizer. You don't want to keep it in the seed starting mix. Once it's got its true leaves, then
Yes.
you want to start giving a very dilute fertilizer. And I like using I have a freshwater fish tank, so I like using that water because they really
Ah,
like it, and then I
yeah.
can recycle it. Yeah.
Another couple question on seeds and bulbs. Tracy Littaker wants to know, are there any seeds that would last over a year? They say I have a lot of flower seeds I've been saving for years, but they wouldn't be any good either.
The only thing that doesn't let for sure, absolutely will not last over a year is parsnips.
Ah,
Everything else we've had pretty good luck. We've actually gotten 10-year-old lettuce seeds to germinate.
um,
The germination rate wasn't very good. It was like maybe 1 out of 10, but they did germinate.
they
So,
did okay.
oh, and let's
Neil
see.
Roden has a question for you, asking, are shallots best grown from bulbs or seeds? Typically, how many cloves will be in a shallot cluster?
Uh, I like I like just buying them from the supermarket and then just splitting them up. So if you get you can kind of tell by feel when you pick up the shallots, you can split it off into like 3 or 4 cloves usually, a big
Uh-huh.
size, and then those you would plant individually into the ground. And then you
Good.
would get what you get like a big cluster that's about the size of maybe the size of a softball sometimes of shallots. You can get quite a few shallots out of it if
Sounds
you're
good.
lucky.
I love to cook with shallots.
Oh
Mark
yeah.
Avant asks, he says, I live in the mountain foothills of Ukaipa at 3,000 feet. We get nightmare freezes and frosts. Haven't had a hard freeze in a few years, and of course, fewer frosts than 20 years ago. What type, the question is, what type or height of row cover should I use for temps in the 30s for winter crops?
Ooh, I don't know about like different grades of row covers. I mean, a lot of times you just use row covers to keep like grasshoppers off of stuff. So um that I'm not sure of. Probably nothing too heavy,
Mhm.
you know, and you don't want to plant for summer crops, you don't want to plant those outside until after March 15th or after your last frost date. So, but anything that's a winter crop probably doesn't, you would use the road covers more for protection against bugs than for frost.
We have a couple questions on what to plant now. Mark Stanley wants to know, can broccoli, cauliflower, and artichokes be planted now? Saito, I hope I'm saying your name right, Yui, wants to know which veggies you recommend planting now in your garden balcony.
I would say go for it, but I saw the forecast. It's supposed to get up to 98 degrees again.
Oh my gosh.
Ugh. So you're probably for planting outdoors, um, for winter stuff. I would not put any winter crops out until the beginning of November. You can start things from seed. Probably now is a good time to start things from seed, but as long as those are in seed trays that are indoors, because yeah, those winter crops do not like the 100-degree weather. And if you plant them outside, it will almost guarantee that we will get another heat wave. So that's been our experience.
So what veggies are good now, Laura?
To plant outside. Well, not to plant outside, to plant in trays. We've got kale, chard, lettuces. Um, uh, then we're gonna hold off on planting the root crops like carrots and things. Those will wait. But all the stuff that you can plant in a seed tray like lettuces and leafy type greens, beans and peas, I would wait a little bit on those. I would wait until, yeah, end of October, early November for those.
And someone wants to know, what are good companion plants for winter crops?
Um, that's like a whole different topic altogether. I like marigolds just because it's really easy to save the seeds from them.
I
They're pretty.
see a theme
I've
here,
noticed
Laura.
that nothing keeps bunnies away except for my cat. So yeah, it's I don't know that much about companion planting, and then especially like for wintertime flowers, I would not recommend planting pansies. Bunnies seem to really love those guys.
Uh,
Yeah, but maybe like some marigolds would probably be tough enough to survive the winter.
Can't go wrong with marigolds. One more
Yeah.
question. How much water for the garden at this time of year?
No, that one you have to kind of play it by ear. It depends on like what you have growing. If you have mulch like on your soil, if you've mulched it, or how much cover you have. Like if you've got plants that are shading the ground, you're not going to need as much water. So I recommend like taking a hand digger and just digging into the ground like a few inches, because a lot of people, we have crappy soil here, right? So like a lot of times you'll see it's a crust that forms on the top, especially in exposed dirt. You'll see a crust form and it looks like it's parched and totally dry. But then when you take a hand digger, you can dig underneath the crust and it's moist underneath. So you don't want to go by what it looks like on the surface. You want to
Surface.
make sure that you check a few inches down, and if it's still moist and you're good. If it's muddy, then don't water.
Too much water. You've been over
If a
that
cloud of
problem before.
dust, if a
Well,
cloud of
listen,
dust comes up, then you know you need to water.
then you need to water. Well, listen,
Yes.
I think that's about all the time we have, unfortunately, Laura. Thank you so much.
Okay.
We have questions. If you were unable to view from the beginning, don't worry. A recording of the session today is going to be sent to you if you're registered. And there's a question, can we do a session on garden pets? You're in luck. We're going to have more garden party episodes coming up, so watch for that. Again,
Awesome.
Laura, thank you. Join us again next month, everybody, for more information from Garden Party. And meanwhile, join us for other upcoming virtual programs. On Friday at 5 p.m., we have Bookish with well-known authors. And tomorrow, join us for our other virtual program, Right Size Your Life, with home organizing expert and our syndicated columnist, Marnie Jameson. You can register for all of these upcoming programs and catch up on others you might have missed by going to scng.com/virtual events. You're going to be able to find all of our past programs there, so check it out. If you'd like to share your thoughts from today or you have additional questions, please email us at events@scng.com. And also a final reminder, if you're not a subscriber, give us a call, 877-469-6133. Please become a stakeholder in local journalism and help make programs like this possible. Thanks again for your support, and we hope to see you next time. Take care.